Hello everyone, welcome to Supplement Tutorials. Today we're talking about a brief introduction to parasitology. So let's get going. So parasitology is basically the study of parasites, and parasitology is an atypical branch of microbiology. When we talk about it, or when we talk about atypical branch of microbiology, we mean, unlike microbiology, we view organisms using an aided eye or the microscope. But in the study of parasitology, it's not always the case where we make use of the microscope for visualization of our parasites of interest. Of course, you can talk about some aspects of parasitology that make use of the microscope for the identification of the parasites. For instance, you can talk about the identification of the parasite cysts or ova using the microscope. That is appropriate. But then, let's say worms or insects or even arachnids, they are all parasites, and those organisms can also be identified visually with an unaided eye. So let's continue. Parasitology is basically classified or branched into three main categories. So we have our protozoans, then we have our helminths, then we have our arachnids, we have arthropods. So these are basically the three main branches of parasitology we have: arthropods, protozoans, and then helminths. Now, when we take the protozoans are actually characterized into four main categories or four main phylums. So we have the Sarcomastigophora, we have the Celiophora, we have the Epicomplexans, and then we have the Microspora. So these are basically the four main classification of protozoans. Then under Sarcomastigophora, we also have two main divisions. We have the Sarcodina, then we have the Mastigophora. We have the Sarcodina, then we have the Mastigophora. Now, Sarcodinas are actually amoebas. We have examples to be ant amoeba histolytica, die-ant amoeba fragilis, we have ant amoeba gingivalis. That will be under Sarcodina. Then under Mastigophora, when we talk about the Mastigophora, we are talking about the flagellates that are protozoans. So we have T. vaginalis, we have Giardia lamblia, we have T. tenax, we have T. tenax. So these are also some examples of the Mastigophora. Then we talk about Celiophora. We are trying to mention one particular organisms of parasitological interest, which is the Balantidium coli. B. coli. So the Balantidium coli is one of, or the only ciliate organisms of parasitological importance. Then it comes to epicomplexes. So the epicomplexes, which we'll find out in our future videos, have one peculiar characteristics, that is the presence of the apical complex that is part of their structure. So we can classify epicomplexes under the following organisms. So we can we have the coccidia, we have the plasmodium, we have the coccidias, and then we have the plasmodium. Under the coccidia, we can talk about cryptosporidium, parvum. We can talk about Isospora belli, etc. And of course, plasmodium. We can talk about the various species of the plasmodium parasites that we have. We can talk about Plasmodium falciparum. We can talk about, that is P. falciparum. We can also talk about malaria. We can talk about vivas. We can talk about ovale. We can even talk about rodentia. Alright. And the microspores are actually spore-forming protozoates, and we'll talk quite deeper about it in future videos. Now let's go to helminths. So helminths too are classified into two major categories. We have the platyhelminths, then we have nemahelminths. Okay, platyhelminths and the nemahelminths. So platyhelminths are actually flatworms. Another name for platyhelminths are flatworms. Yeah. And then the nemahelminths are also called roundworms. So here flatworms, and here roundworms. So under the epicomplexes, we can also talk about, I forgot this one, Babesia. Okay. So under flatworms, that is where we are going to talk about the cestodes and then the trematodes. So cestodes and then the trematodes. So the cestodes are actually what we call the tapeworms. And then the trematodes are what we call flukes. So under the tapeworms, we also have two main divisions. We have Cyclophilidae and then Pseudophilidae. So Cyclophilidae and then Pseudophilidae. So under these tapeworms, that is where we have Echinococcus granulosus, which is also known as the dog tapeworm. We have other organisms like the rat tapeworm. We have etc. So the tapeworms, Solium tinea, Solium saginata, etc. And then the flukes, you can talk about your schistosomes. Schistosoma hematobium is a fluke. You can talk about Paragonimus westermani, and then other flukes. Then finally, the nematodes. The nematodes are actually roundworms, and we will find out in future videos their structural composition. You could see that they have two, or they they have different structural composition. For instance, this one has a complete digestive system, and one has a complete digestive system, one has an incomplete digestive system. So that's between Platyhelminthes and Nemathelminthes, etc. So under the roundworms, we can talk about hookworms. For instance, the examples of roundworms. We can talk about the loa loa. Is also an example. The hookworm can answer yes. Ancylostoma duodenale, and then Necata americana. That's old world hookworm and the new world hookworm. I'll talk about them under the Nemathelminthes or the roundworms or the nematodes. Okay. So in future videos we'll talk more about this. I don't want to go much deeper into the nematodes, but we'll talk more about that in future videos. Then under the arthropods. The arthropods actually is divided into two categories. So we have the phylum Insecta and we have the Arachnida. So the insects, we have a whole subdivision of insects, but of course we are dealing with parasitological importance, so we might talk about insects of parasitological importance. We can talk about the flies, we can talk about etc. But we have other subdivisions of interest. We have the Isospera, we have Hymenoptera, etc. They are all under the insect. And then the arachnids too, we can talk about the spiders. We can even talk about the scorpions. And of course, they are all under what? Arthropods. We can talk about the lice. Oh, I don't think. Okay, so let's rule out the scorpions for now. We can talk about the lices. We can talk about the ticks, etc. So this is a brief summary of what parasitology is about, especially parasitology of medical importance. We will go much deeper also into their nomenclature as we proceed in future videos. Thank you very much for paying attention to this session. We shall meet next time. Goodbye.